I was 42 then, a furniture man with sawdust in my cuffs, when Dad's watch went missing for 17 days. Stainless steel with a deep blue dial, not worth much in money, but worth everything else. The back had my name engraved. Asa. Hold your course. Dad. He gave it to me the day I opened my own shop. I wore it every single day. I dropped it off at a little service center just off Harbor Avenue, needed a regulation check and a new gasket. I signed the form, left my number, told the guy behind the counter I'd be back Wednesday. That was a Monday. Wednesday came, and I showed up after work, hands still smelling like cedar and glue. The clerk looked up at me with that distracted retail face and said, "Already picked up." Just like that. Said it was gone. "No," I told him. "I didn't pick it up." He tapped a clipboard and said, "Well, no signature here, but it was collected." I leaned in, both palms flat on the counter. "So who took it?" He shrugged and said something about checking with his manager. That afternoon I came back and asked for footage. Hector Bloom, the manager, came out in khakis, too pressed for someone dealing with real customers. He tried to smile me into shutting up. "Company policy doesn't allow us to release security footage," he said, like I was asking to see state secrets. When I asked for something in writing, he gave me a handshake and a verbal apology for the inconvenience. I told him, straight up, that wasn't going to cut it. He leaned back on one hip and said, "Maybe try retracing your steps. Could be misplaced." I stared at him so hard he looked away. "It's not a wallet," I said. "It's my father's watch." Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from, and let's continue. What I didn't say, but wanted to, was that my dad was dying. Hospice had moved the bed closer to the window so he could see the neighbor's oak tree. He couldn't tell me what day it was, but if he saw that watch on my wrist, he smiled. I sent a certified letter 2 days later, demanding the records, footage, employee logs, anything. Hector signed for it. Then he stopped answering my calls. I knew something was wrong, but I had to drop it. Dad passed the following Friday. St. Bridget's in San Carver was booked for the service. I ironed a black shirt, closed the shop early, and told myself I'd deal with the watch after we buried him. I slid the letter receipt into my glove box and drove to the funeral with both hands on the wheel, like I could keep everything else from slipping. Father Luis's voice carried over the pews, calm and steady, unhurried. I didn't hear a single word. My eyes were locked on the watch, my watch, resting casual on Eamon Vale's wrist like it belonged there. He didn't flinch, just sat upright, hands folded, smug posture straight out of a posture coach's pamphlet. Mara didn't even glance my way. She stared forward like she was at a board meeting. I gripped the back of the pew so tight my fingers went cold. Eamon adjusted his sleeves again, flashing that blue dial like it was some kind of prize. I'd worn that watch through 100 shop builds. Dad gave it to me when I opened Carrick Woodworks. The dial had a scratch near the 5 from where I dropped it on a concrete floor in Reno. That scratch was still there. Aunt Dot leaned in from my right, her voice low and clipped. "Don't make a scene here," she said. "Let the man be buried before the reckoning starts." I nodded, barely, but it took everything in me to sit still. The whole row ahead of me held the people I was supposed to trust. My wife, the guy she said was just junior staff, and the watch that should have been with me when we laid Dad down. My jaw ached from clenching it. I tried to breathe through my nose, but it came out shaky. Eamon leaned slightly toward Mara and whispered something. She smiled, polite and quick, not even nervous. That's when I knew it wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't lost luggage or a misunderstanding. It was planned, calm, covered in cologne. Father Luis read from Ecclesiastes, something about a time for every purpose, and all I could think about was the time I wasted trusting Mara with the parts of me that mattered. I didn't blink once while that watch ticked on Eamon's wrist like a countdown. Bennett sat 4 rows over, in his usual too-tight suit, and caught my eye. He didn't nod, just watched me. After the service, he came up and muttered, "Saw them at the marina in November. Thought it was business stuff." He looked down like he felt stupid for not saying anything sooner. The hymn started. Be not afraid. I stood, but didn't sing. I couldn't fake the peace everyone else seemed to be reaching for. Mara sang like her life was normal, like her hand hadn't just touched the wrist of a man wearing my father's final gift to me. When the song ended, Father Luis opened with a prayer, but I didn't bow my head. My eyes stayed on the two of them. I wanted to walk up there, tear the watch off his wrist, and throw it straight through the stained glass. But Dot's hand touched my forearm, solid and quiet. She didn't have to say it again. We would settle this in the right order. From behind, I heard a whisper. Ain't that his boy's watch? Then another voice. That's cold, man. Real cold. The murmurs ran through the pews in seconds. The quiet turned sharp. Eamon must have felt it too. He shifted in his seat, straightened his spine, rolled his neck like he was prepping for a round in the ring. I saw the veins in his hand twitch. Mara's lips tightened. She was hearing it now, our story unraveling in real time, right in front of stained glass saints and grieving neighbors. I looked down at the pew, saw the program stacked too neat, folded by someone who thought this would be a quiet farewell. I pressed my thumb against the corner of one until it bent. The moment the prayer ended, I stood up and stepped into the aisle. I felt every eye lock on me like a bad verdict. When Father Luis nodded, my legs finally moved, though they felt like I'd planed them down to toothpicks. I climbed the short steps to the lectern, palms slick, heartbeat loud enough I was sure the front pew could hear it. I didn't look at Mara or Eamon. I looked at the wood grain under my fingers and started talking before my courage ran out. I began with the safe parts. I talked about Dad's patience, the way he never rushed a cut even when the client was breathing down his neck. I told them how he could tie a bowline without looking, hands working on memory alone, like some things just live deeper than thought. A few people smiled, a few nodded. That part felt like standing on solid ground. Then I said the thing I'd been afraid to say since I woke up that morning. My father called me 2 days before he passed, I said, voice steady enough to surprise me. He told me he'd hired a private investigator. The air shifted. I heard a sharp breath from somewhere behind me. I kept going because stopping felt worse. His name was Crispin Joe, I said. Quiet guy, professional. He didn't deal in guesses. He dealt in proof. I lifted my eyes then, just enough. Mara stared straight ahead, spine stiff, mouth set. Eamon's jaw tightened, but he still didn't sit down. The report showed my wife and a colleague of hers, I said, and let that land. Hotels that don't have conference rooms, Cabo, labeled as client development, 2 evenings at a marina hotel in Sausalito, time-stamped, documented. Someone muttered, "Wow," and someone else shushed them too late. Father Luis shifted his weight, hands folded, face carefully blank. The congregation didn't bother hiding their reactions. Faces turned, necks craned. The truth moved faster than I expected. I swallowed and added the part that mattered most. My dad's last clear words to me were simple. He said, "Don't let them take anything else from you." Eamon pushed up from the pew like he might argue, like this was a meeting he could spin his way out of. Aunt Dot was already there. She slid into the aisle and folded her arms, shoulders square, blocking him without touching him. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. Mara still wouldn't look at me. Her eyes stayed forward, fixed on the altar like she could outrun the truth by refusing to turn her head. I felt something settle in my chest then, heavy but solid. The last of my doubt burned off. I didn't understand what my father meant until this morning, I said. Until our family attorney explained what Dad set in motion before he died. I nodded toward the third row. Alden Blackwell stood, silver hair neat, jaw set like a plumb line. He held a file against his chest, calm as a man reading a weather report. Per Edwin Carrick's instruction, Alden said, voice carrying clean, certain terms will be read publicly. I looked at Father Luis and gave a small nod. If this was going to happen, it was going to happen, where my father asked for witnesses. Father Luis took a breath, then announced a brief recess after the final hymn. He said we would step into the narthex for any legal reading. I stepped back from the lectern and walked down the steps, eyes forward, hands steady, moving to my seat as the organ began again. The final hymn ended and the organ went quiet, leaving the narthex full of shuffling feet and held breath. People spilled out in uneven lines, still dressed in grief, eyes sharp now with curiosity. The air felt tighter in there, like the walls had leaned in. Blackwell stepped forward without being asked, opened his file, and waited until the last echo died. He read clean and slow, every word landing exactly where it was meant to. He said the majority of my father's estate was locked in a trust for me alone, structured so tight that no spouse could touch it by any route, now or later. No loopholes, no clever workarounds, just final. Then he looked up once and continued. The cottage in Carmel had been deeded to me the previous month. Clear title. No liens, no shared interest. That one hit me sideways. I hadn't known about any cottage. Dad never mentioned it, not even once, and that alone told me he'd been planning longer than I wanted to admit. Blackwell didn't pause. The yacht Verity, the brokerage accounts, and my father's partnership interest, tied to Carrick and Larkin, LLP, were all held for my benefit only. He didn't dress it up. He didn't soften the language. He read it like inventory, which somehow made it heavier. Then he cleared his throat and said there was a paragraph written in my father's own hand, intended to be read aloud. I recognized Dad's voice before the sentence ended. A man who cheats my son during my final season earns exactly what he has alone. The sound that followed wasn't a gasp. It was quieter than that. You could hear people swallow. Someone shifted their weight like the floor had moved. I didn't look at Eamon at first, but I felt the change in the room, like oxygen thinning. Blackwell kept going. To Mara Ellison, he read, I leave $1 and a piece of advice. Honesty is cheaper than reputation repair. Mara made a sound that might have been my name. It came out small and sharp. Eamon went pale, the kind of pale that starts at the lips and spreads fast. His hand tightened around the edge of the program. The blue dial flashed again, but this time it looked wrong on him, like stolen boots that didn't fit. Maeve Larkin stood up then. Dad's partner. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She confirmed the prenuptial language was valid and enforceable. Gifts and inheritances remained separate property with no community claim. Period. Her eyes flicked to Mara for half a second, then back to Blackwell. Blackwell read one more note, his tone unchanged. It was addressed, in my father's words, to the young colleague under the impression a windfall is imminent. A few heads turned toward Eamon without anyone saying his name. The cars, the house, the club dues were provided by my side of the family, Blackwell read, not by your companion's earnings. Mara leaned toward me then, voice low but not low enough. Asa, this is cruel, she said, like I'd written any of it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lean in. I just said, you wore my father's watch here. That stopped her cold. Aunt Dot was still planted in the aisle, feet wide, daring anyone to test her. Nobody did. Blackwell closed the file. Father Luis nodded, like he'd just witnessed something necessary and ugly all at once. I stepped forward one last time and said the only sentence I had left. My father told the truth. I'm going to live by it. I walked back down through the narthex, past Eamon, close enough to see the sweat at his collar. The blue dial caught the light again, and I swear that watch looked heavier on his wrist than he could carry. I stepped out of the narthex, and the sun hit me like a spotlight. My legs gave up, so I sat on the church steps without arguing. People trickled past in pairs and whispers. Some nodded. Most looked away. I didn't care either way. Blackwell came out a minute later, quiet shoes on old concrete, and handed me an envelope. The front had my name in shaky block letters, the kind Dad used when his hand stopped trusting him. Inside was a folded sheet. No date. Sorry, I won't be around for the face you saw today, it started. I tried to warn you soft. You didn't hear me, so I made it loud. I blinked a few times before reading the rest. Take Verity past the breakwater just once. Best sailors don't dodge storms. They learn the lines. I had to stop there and close the paper for a second. I didn't cry, just couldn't see straight for a beat. Then I flipped it over. Postscript. Check the study safe. Combo's your birthday. Something you'll want for the road. Before I could even tuck it away, someone cleared their throat beside me. Woman, early 40s maybe, gray blazer, polite distance. Layla Pember, she said. Bay Sentinel. I'm not recording, I just wanted to introduce myself. She didn't shove a mic in my face. Her notebook stayed closed. I gave her a nod. I don't have a full comment, I said. My father believed in protecting family, and he believed in consequences. That's all I'll say. She waited a second, then asked, Do you want to name names? I looked at the cathedral behind us, then at the crowd dispersing. There's enough names in that building already. She gave a half smile and stepped back. Fair enough. If anything changes, you've got my card. She left it on the step next to me and didn't linger. My phone buzzed in my pocket again. Third time in 5 minutes. I didn't check it. Aunt Dot's message came through. Proud of you. Don't let the boy leave with that watch. I almost laughed. Short, sharp, straight to the point. Very Dot. Bennett came over with a bottle of water and a face like he'd been hit by a bus. He handed it to me and dropped down onto the step. I left voicemails for Blackwell, he said. From back when I saw them at the Cabo thing. Didn't mean to hold out. It's fine, I cut in. They'll help now. He nodded and sat there a second before standing again. You need anything, you call? I nodded. Appreciate it. When he left, I finally looked at my phone screen. 34 texts, 11 missed calls. Notifications piled like junk mail. Half were condolences. The other half wanted a front row seat to the wreck. I turned the phone face down on the step and didn't answer a single one. I drove straight to the house, didn't turn on the lights, didn't stop moving. My key still worked. That wouldn't last. Dad's study was exactly as he left it. Tight, clean, every item where it was supposed to be. The safe behind the bookshelf clicked open with my birthday. Inside were folders labeled like he expected someone else to read them. That hurt more than it should have. I pulled them out one at a time. First was the prenup, clearly marked with Maeve's notes on it. Second, a full spread of brokerage statements and property records, updated to the last quarter. Then Crispin's report. The one Dad had mentioned before the end. I didn't read it all right then. I skimmed enough. Photos, timestamps, travel logs. Mara and Eamon at SFO on a Thursday morning. Again at the Marina Hotel. 2 nights in a row, same jacket, different dates. Airport gates, lobby shots, one where she was fixing his collar in line at the rental car desk. The receipts matched agency expenses. Client dinners listed on the same days the photos were taken. No client names, just vague entries and corporate blur. The metadata didn't lie. I forwarded the entire file to Blackwell and to Maeve. I added one line. Use what you need. After that, I called Hector Bloom. Again, straight to the point. I want pickup records and stills from the counter. Anything you've got. He gave me the same speech. Our footage overwrites automatically after 48 hours. He said the watch had left with the original ticket, but still no signature. He kept his tone flat, like this was just another customer complaint. I sent a certified letter, I told him. You signed for it. I remember, he said. Corporate is handling it now. Then have corporate reply in writing. I'll pass that along. He hung up first. Later that night, a buddy of Bennett's, some guy in office building security, sent me a phone clip. Not legal, not official, but good enough. It showed Eamon walking out the lobby of the same building where the service shop sits. His hand clutched a small white bag. It wasn't from the shop's CCTV, but it didn't have to be. The timestamp matched the day they claimed the watch was picked up. I checked Eamon's socials next. He followed a part-time clerk from a smoothie spot on the same block. I could improve a handoff, but it didn't take much to connect the dots. I filed a formal complaint through the County Consumer Protection Office, filled out every single field, attached copies, forwarded the whole thing to Blackwell. If nothing else, there'd be a record. By then, it was late. I went back to the house and stood outside for a full minute before I went in. Every light was off. I didn't call Mara. I didn't want to hear what version she'd rehearsed. I changed the locks in under an hour. I'd done it before for clients. Never thought I'd do it on my own door. I didn't sleep in the bedroom. I grabbed a dog-eared blanket from the shop and laid it out next to the clamps and sawdust. Slept on the floor that night. Didn't dream, didn't need to. I left just after sunrise and didn't tell anyone I was going. Tossed one duffel in the back of the truck, threw in a box of chisels, and pointed the wheels south. The closer I got to Carmel, the quieter my head got. I pulled up to the address on the deed and found a single-story cottage with sunburned shingles and windows that faced the tide like they knew what mattered. Inside, the place smelled like pine soap and ocean air. Dad had left a note on the kitchen counter in thick black marker. Sunrise straight ahead. Coffee in the right-hand cabinet. The keys were already on the hook. He knew I'd show up late, and he still got everything ready. I unpacked slow, set the chisels on the counter like I needed proof this wasn't just a break. Built a small rack for them on the porch that night. By morning, it already felt like mine. Bennett drove down Saturday with a cooler full of bad sandwiches and an attitude. "You're not just going to sit on the porch and sulk," he said. "You've got sails to trim." He dragged me down to Verity and made me run reefing drills until I couldn't feel my hands. We took her past Point Lobos in steady wind. The way she moved, clean, fast, honest, cleared something out of me. For the first time in weeks, my chest didn't feel packed with broken glass. After that, I built a bench from a drift-hued oak slab I found near the dunes. Nothing fancy, just solid enough to sit on when the phone got loud. It fit right under the window with the best breeze. One afternoon, a neighbor kid wandered over holding a busted thwart from his skiff. "You fix stuff, right?" he asked, voice all elbows and sunburn. "Sometimes," I said. "Depends if it's fixable." He held it out, hopeful. I clamped the split, ran 2 screws through clean. He watched like I was wiring a space shuttle. When it held, he grinned like it was the 4th of July. That same week, Layla's column came out. Dignity at funerals. No names, just sharp questions and quiet implications. People in San Carver don't need names to get the picture. Mara started posting again. Sunshine quotes and blurry beach photos with captions like, "Truth is subjective and misinformation spreads fast." I didn't respond. I didn't even click. Dot sent me screenshots of agency chatter. Stuff like HR is reviewing a situation, we're aligning on values, and internal standards are being evaluated. The usual PR smoke when somebody lights a fire under the wrong desk. Father Luis left a voicemail, voice calm and certain. "You did right, Asa. Let me know if you need help with the practicals." I played it twice before deleting it. Not because I didn't believe him, because I already had what I needed. Nights got quieter. I stopped waking up in fight mode. Started sleeping straight through. No calls, no noise, no sudden jolt of remembering what I'd lost. And the next morning, I got back to work. The letter from Hector Bloom showed up midweek. Company letterhead, every line buttoned down, all the commas in the right place. Legal slick. Cold. It called the situation regrettable and blamed the release of my father's watch on a procedural lapse during a staffing transition. Translation: some temp handed it to a stranger and they hoped I'd move on. There was no video attached, no names, just a line offering to reimburse the watch at market value. I wrote back one sentence: "It's not a market, it's my father. Keep your check. Keep writing. No best regards. No signature block, just that." 2 days later, Layla texted. "Agency placed Eamon on leave. No press release. Colleagues say it's pending review, which means don't come in. She added a shrug emoji and deleted it before I could even respond. Aunt Dot forwarded a few screen grabs from some internal staff forum, anonymous quotes, but I recognized the tone. Her judgment's been off for months. Lines were crossed. Not the kind of leadership we want in this place. I didn't feel vindicated, just tired. Blackwell mailed a formal demand to the service company, citing negligence, breach of policy, and the consumer complaint case number. 3 pages, clean, sharp, ruthless without being loud. A couple nights later, Hector called after business hours. Probably thought I'd be calmer once the day wore off. I wanted to say, "Off the record, I'm sorry," he said. "This should have been handled better." "You're right," I said. He paused. "Any chance we can resolve this quietly?" "If the watch comes back," I told him, "I'll consider it closed, for my part." There was silence, then a clipped "understood." He didn't call again. Verity and I kept heading out. The ocean didn't lie, didn't dodge, didn't offer empty apologies. Trimming sales became the only argument I was willing to have. Wind against line, clean and clear. Onshore, I filed the house sale paperwork. I kept it simple. My name, her name, signed and boxed. I didn't drag it out. I didn't ask for anything I didn't need. Just a clean cut. The divorce petition went in a day later. Blackwell handled the filing. We'd kept the prenup sharp, and now it worked exactly how Dad and Maeve designed it. Simple math, no access. Mara texted twice that week. Once on a Tuesday, "Can we talk like adults? Just the two of us." Then again Thursday. This silence doesn't fix anything. She was wrong. The silence fixed a lot. It kept the story from spinning back into excuses. It made space for me to breathe. I didn't answer either message. I watched the bubbles hang for a while, then time out. 7 months to the day from the funeral, I signed the divorce decree with a pen my dad used to chew the cap off when he was thinking. The court clerk didn't ask questions, just handed me the final copy and nodded once. No fanfare, no grand speech, just done. Mara kept her salary and the silver SUV. I kept the Carmel cottage, Verity, and the shop. That was all I wanted. I didn't ask for more. I didn't need more. What I got back was the part of myself I'd given up quietly over the last few years, piece by piece without realizing. I sold the condo in the city, the one we used to call home but hadn't really lived in for the last 2 years. We just existed there, slept in the same space, operated like co-workers at the end of a shift. I took the proceeds and split them up. Part went into savings, and part went into a new scholarship fund in Dad's name. Nothing fancy, no bronze plaques or staged photos, just a clean fund for maritime youth in Santa Cruz County and a small grant for first-year apprentices in the trades. Dad would have liked that. He believed in steady hands and showing up early. Maeve sent me a plain card with just one sentence inside. "Your father would approve of steady investments." That's all it said. No need for anything more. Layla's "Dignity at Funerals" column got picked up by 2 coastal papers. Still no names, just sharp lines and harder truths. But anyone from San Carver who read it knew exactly what had gone down. And nobody said I was wrong. Bennett showed up the next weekend and dragged me into a small regatta off the coast. I hadn't raced in years. I over-trimmed the jib, misread the swell once, and we still placed 4th. He laughed the whole way back to the dock. Said, "You've got old salt in your blood, man. You'll be fine." The service company sent one more letter, this time signed by their legal department. Different tone altogether. It admitted that employee misconduct facilitated a third-party removal of property without consent. They didn't say Eamon's name. Didn't need to. I already knew. Work picked up again. I took on 2 dining tables, solid ash and maple, a garden gate for an older couple up the coast, and a rocking chair for a widow whose husband had passed 6 months before mine. She brought me a picture of the chair he used to sit in. I matched it the best I could. When she saw it, her hand went to her mouth and stayed there for a full minute. I never told her what was happening in my life. Didn't need to. She just hugged me once and left in silence. I kept my phone number the same. Out of laziness, maybe. Or maybe out of spite. If Mara wanted to stare at my name and think about what she'd burned through, she could. Most nights I walked the beach alone. Sand in my shoes, wind in my jacket, Verity visible just offshore. The water never had much to say, but it never lied. It didn't dress things up or try to sell me hope. It just kept moving forward. On the 1-year mark, I stopped by the post office like I always did after picking up varnish. A small brown box waited behind the counter. No return address, just my name in thick block letters. The clerk handed it over without a word. Inside was Dad's watch, cleaned, ticking, band replaced. Next to it sat a post-it note with 3 words in rushed handwriting. I'm sorry. I didn't slam anything. Didn't flip. Just stood there a minute with my thumb pressed against the back of the case. Outside, I sat in the truck and let it run while I stared through the windshield at nothing. Later that day, Bennett forwarded a still from one of his security buddies. Exterior camera, grainy angle, time-stamped early morning. The figure looked like Eamon, hood up, chin tucked, dropping the package into the after-hours slot. I didn't need a face. The posture was enough. Back at the cottage, I grabbed the case opener I use for drawer locks and eased the watch open on the kitchen counter. Tucked under the gasket was a wafer of paper, folded twice. 1 line. My dad's handwriting. Locker 47, Harbor Storage, code word, Verity. I went the next morning. Clerk didn't ask questions when I gave the code. Locker 47 was clean inside. No dust, no mess. Just a small green tin, a compass with a scarred brass bezel, and a note written on thick stationery. If they steal the watch, they can't steal your heading. Next to it was another letter, folded tight. This one was for Maeve, but Dad hadn't sent it. He thanked her for protecting me. Listed 3 names. People I should call if things ever went too far or too quiet. People I'd never heard of, but would recognize by voice if I needed to. I took the compass out to Verity and set it next to the helm. The needle quivered a little before settling, worn down, but steady. Just like Dad. That afternoon I wrote a 1-line note to Hector. Resolved. I didn't copy anyone, didn't follow up. Some quiet endings are better. Mara texted a paragraph about forgiveness, growth, and our story. It read like a rebrand. I read it once, let the reply screen hang open, and closed the phone instead. Layla emailed again, asked if I was finally ready to go on record. I told her the column she already wrote said enough. That evening, the light cut low across the water. I took Verity out just past the breakwater. The wind was easy, the lines set clean. I didn't look back, didn't think about who failed me, didn't think about what was taken. I just held my course. Quick question before we wrap. If you have hype, tap it. Please subscribe and like. Then comment. When trust breaks, do you hold your course or chase closure?